So yeah, we're looking forward to hearing what you have to say about to GitHub or not to GitHub. That is the question. I certainly know personally I'm interested to hear what you have to say, and please ignore Anthony. I'll mute him if he starts jumping in too much. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to you, Andre. Thank you very much.
I'm jumping in right away.
Do you mind if I share my screen?
Yep, go for it.
I think you need to do something about that.
Yes, I do. Sorry, that's right. I think I need to make you the host. Okay, you should be right now.
Oh, sweet. Perfect. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, I can.
Now, also a bit of a warning. Anthony and Richard know about that, but I just received notification from my ISP that there is a plant maintenance in my area. So if I suddenly disappear, Anthony, can you call me and let me know that I'm an idiot and talking to myself?
Will do, buddy.
Okay. So what we'll do today is I'll just talk about a few things a few exciting things that we've been doing at GitHub recently. So you decide whether to use GitHub or that Microsoft thing that Anthony is all for. Yeah, so let's go. So first thing is a bit about myself. I started actually at GitHub only a few months ago in February, just before the COVID hit. I was previously working for Service Rocket, which is Atlassian partner, doing a lot of Atlassian consulting. And in that company, I've been with that company for 15 years, and I've done almost everything there, starting from tech support to ops to finance to everything. Born in Ukraine, studied in China, worked in Korea, moved to Australia in 2001, lived here ever since, and yeah, we speak 4 languages at home. So yeah, a lot of people telling me must be a spy. So about GitHub, when I would ask people and say, what do you know about GitHub? Most common answer is it's a code repository. And it's a bit disappointing for me because GitHub is way more than that. It used to be code repository maybe 5-10 years ago, but these days it's way more than that. And this is where GitHub is heading. What GitHub wants to do is to be a platform for anything developer needs to do, starting from the moment when they have an idea about something, finishing with deploying, monitoring, and operating it. So probably GitHub is most familiar in that code part, but we already working and even have some solutions for some of those other areas as well. So what I wanted to talk about today is a few areas and a few features which we have, which are really interesting. Now, first of them is code spaces. Usually the way you work is you have your developer laptop or desktop, you check out the repository, you do your code, you check in, you do your testing, debugging, everything on your laptop. And once you are ready, you push your changes to the repository. Now, with all the cloud computing coming these days, and people want to work remotely and spend less time on admin task of setting up an environment, why don't we do it in the cloud as well? And that's exactly what code spaces are. Code spaces is a virtual environment which will be set up with Visual Studio Code in it, with additional extensions if you want, you can configure them, and with your repository already in that environment. So technically in code spaces, what you see in your Visual Studio Code is exactly what you will see in that Visual in code spaces environment, but it's completely in the cloud. So technically, you can do your development on a Chromebook. You don't need a beefy laptop anymore. Now, the downside of this is I wanted to show you a code spaces demo, but for some reason, just like internet connection, 5 minutes ago, it stopped loading for me. And I had such a great example where I can show you how I actually do this stuff. Let me see if I still have it running. But if not, unfortunately, I will have to move to the next feature. Yeah, so usually there would be an option here, open with code spaces. And on top of that, you would have a code spaces here with the list of your currently running code spaces. So I can have a code space for each project. I can have multiple code spaces for each repository. But unfortunately, it doesn't work right now. That's very annoying. I need to find out why it didn't work. Yes.
So that's in preview at the moment, isn't it?
I think it's in beta. Yes.
Closed beta, I think, because I've just tried it and it says sign up for Code Spaces beta. So I wonder if they're doing something with it.
Oh yes, they are doing. That's why I'm like, I had this problem in the past when it just disappears once in a while. So I was really hoping that it would work for this hour, but really bad timing. Really, it's probably the coolest feature among everything. Well, maybe it competes with another code scanning later I'll show you, which definitely works. But yeah, it's one of the coolest features which I've seen recently at GitHub.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Full-blown Visual Studio's Visual Source Code. I don't know. The whole development environment just in the cloud. It's awesome. So yeah, go and sign up for beta and see. You most likely will get access and play with it. Now, the next feature is discussions. So if you remember those PHP boards, PHP forums, that's what was missing in GitHub for a while, because we had concept of an issue, but sometimes it's not an issue. Issue is something that you raise, you address, you fix, you close. Sometimes it's something that doesn't have to be closed. It's just discussions about ideas, or raising some concerns in general, or just cat pictures, sharing cat pictures, right? So that's what discussions are for. We create a discussion exactly for that purpose, to discuss things that do not have this issue type closure. And that's how it looks. You're looking at one of the open source projects, and with discussions enabling it. So you can see here, people just, I'm not member of this project, but because it's open public, I can go and see what people are talking about. Like, is it possible? It's not an issue, but can we do it that way, right? What about this idea? So really, what we use it internally in GitHub for is exactly for that. What do you think about our current onboarding process? What we can improve, along those lines? It's already out. We announced it in May. So if you have any open source public repositories, I think it also works in private as well. So yeah, feel free to enable and play with it. Any questions about that?
So is it enabled by default, or do you have to do something special to get that to happen?
I think you need to enable it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. yeah, somewhere in settings. So that discussions. Now that's my favorite topic here. So here is some stats, because I have to put some stats into presentation, right? So you see two lines, and one says how many lines of code we create, and second is how many security threats we are introducing into that code. So what you can see is it's almost the same. The more lines we write, the more vulnerabilities we introduce. So we always playing this catch-up game. Is there something that we can do here? And is anybody here from app security background? No? No. Okay. So shifting security left is a very common theme these days. And the idea is, look, it will cost you millions of dollars to fix a problem which is already in production. One of the largest security breaches I'm aware of costed the company something along the lines of $450 million after all the fine and lawsuits and fixing and everything. But the earlier you fix it in development lifecycle, the cheaper it is. So if you go all the way to the beginning when developer just introducing that problem and you catch it at that point, it's only 1 hour, 1 or 2 hours of developer's time to fix it, which will cost you $80. 80 versus 450 millions. I think that's not a bad difference, right? If you will be able to set up something to catch those problems earlier. And on top of that, we have this big disbalance of how many security researchers we have versus how many developers. And security researchers are the ones who are looking for those problems. So when we looked into that, we've created a number of tools which help you to find those problems earlier. Now, there will be 3 tools which I'm talking about, which will convert into the 4th one very nicely. So just bear with me for a while. Within GitHub, what we have is, one thing we have is dependency graph. Your applications is probably 80 to 90% are based on open source. That's standard ratio in the industry. What we can do in GitHub is we can analyze your code, find out what packages what packages your code depends on, then also dig into those packages and find what packages those packages depend on. And because majority of open source is hosted on GitHub, we will be able to see all that all the way to the bottom. And we are able to give you the list of all immediate and indirect dependencies that you have in your software. So that one thing. Second, we have what we call a security advisory area. That's an area within GitHub where, as an open source maintainer, you can create a private pull request and work on some vulnerability with only limited people. If you have an open source project and somebody calls you and say, you have this vulnerability, here are the details, here where it is in the code, you can create a pull request as usual, but that means the whole world will know straight away that there is a problem. You probably want to create a fix first and have that fix ready when you tell the world that there is a problem. So that's exactly what we have, this private area where you can create a private pull request, pull in a few developers, sort out the fix. As part of that process, what you can also do is you can create a CVE number. You can request CVE number from GitHub. GitHub is actually one of the CVE numbering authorities. So we will create a CVE number for your vulnerability. So when you announce it, you have a CVE number, you have a fix, you have all the details at once, rather than announcing publicly without the fix. So that's second one. And third one is what we have is a GitHub advisory database. That's our own database of CVEs, which we collect from multiple sources. We have a dedicated team behind that database who actually looks at different CVEs and filter out noise and only puts the real stuff into our database. And that database obviously includes stuff that you submit as part of your vulnerability fix. So those three features nicely convert into this one great feature which we have, which is called Dependable Security Update. If we know what versions and which packages and which versions your software depend on, we can go to our database, which contains all vulnerabilities, known vulnerabilities from open source projects. And we can cross-check the database and tell you, hey, out of these 10 packages, these two are actually have, the versions you depend on actually have vulnerabilities reported in our database. You may want to upgrade them. And by the way, because we have that in our database, the versions you need to upgrade to are these. So we're telling you, you need to upgrade from this version to fix that problem. But we take it even a step further. We actually create a pull request for you to easily review, merge it. So very simple process. Review, click merge button, you've done it. It's updated. And that's how it would look. So I have a repository here. If I would go to dependable alerts, it tells me, hey, all these packages that you depend on, they have known vulnerability. And if we go into this one, you may want to upgrade from 4.11 to 4.14.1. And here's the details. And by the way, I actually created a pull request for you. Review this pull request, see if everything is good, merge it, and you're done. As easy as that. Any questions about that? Does anybody use GitHub here?
Yeah, I use it.
So do you use that feature?
Yes, yeah, I get emails which tell me from time to time, mainly from my blog, which is like a Jekyll site. There's a couple of like Ruby gems which are got vulnerabilities detected. So yeah, it's pretty good.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
I get. So yeah, that's one feature which we help to. This feature is really about making sure that the code you depend on is secure. Now, the next feature is one of the best ones, is about securing the code that you wrote. Remember, there is 80 to 90% of the code is open source that you depend on, and only 10 to 20 which actually yours. So here I will be talking about that 10 to 20% which you wrote. If you heard, has anybody heard of a company called SAML?
I have.
Okay, sweet. So SAML is a company which created this website called lgtm.com. If you have an open source project, you can just drop your open source project URL into that website, and it will scan it for any known vulnerabilities. If you know how to create your own query or modify that search, you can add even more into that. GitHub acquired SAML last year, and what we are doing right now is integrating this engine behind that website. The engine name is CodeQL. We integrating that natively into GitHub, so you can see it all and interact with it all from the same interface. So what does that engine do is it scans your code and it creates relationships between different objects in your code. So if you think about it, you have variables, you have functions, you have methods. What we do is we see how they relate to each other. If it's a compiled language, we actually even build the code to see how it interact with, how those objects interact with each other during the build stage. And we create one large database of those relationships. From there, you can use CodeQL language, which has anybody of you used SQL just for databases?
Yes, I have.
It looks very similar. It's select from where.
Cool.
And you query that database to fine tune and find the vulnerabilities that you're looking for in your code. So this is a traditional way of how you would be looking for traditional way of fixing bugs. Somebody calls you, they tell you this is a problem in this application, in this code. You grab a free developer, they will go fix it. If they have free time, they probably do search, string search to find similar problem somewhere else, if they have time, right? What we do is we create this database and we write queries. And because we don't really care about this actual string, we care about the relationship between those objects. We will be able to find all the different variants of the same problem. And just like with SQL, when you're looking for some data set in a database, probably you will start with select star from table 1. It will give you 10,000. Then you say, okay, select star from table 1 where some condition. It will narrow down your search. Then you add another condition, you narrow down your search. Then you maybe join a few tables and you narrow down your search so you will get data set which exactly you're after. Exactly the same story with us. You write initial query, it may give you 1,000 false positives. You fine tune that query, it will give you 50 false positives. You fine tune that query, it will give you no false positives. And that's how you find all the variants of the same problem across your whole code base. But we take it even a step further. We actually plug it into your software development lifecycle. Remember that feature, that graph I said, it's better to find problem early when it costs $80? We plug it to your pull request. So as soon as developer creates a pull request, our engine will be able to scan it, scan all the code that developer wrote, and tell you there is possibly a problem. It doesn't get any lefter than this. Here's an interesting case study. With Uber, they have a bug bounty program. And each time somebody finds a problem, they have to pay out some amount, like $50,000 for a bug. But what used to happen is probably they had some smart Ukrainians who found out about the bug, about the reported bug, went to the same Uber application and probably found other 10 places with the same problem and reported to Uber, right? So suddenly Uber has to pay 10 times 50,000, $500,000 for the same problem, which they didn't find. Once we plugged that CodeQL engine to the system, as soon as somebody reported a bug, the security researcher would write a query which would catch that bug, initial one, plus find all the variants across not just that application, but across all products within Uber. So essentially, we save them, what, $500,000 almost for every bug found. So that's what we do. We take that CodeQL engine, which sits behind lgtm.com website, plug it into developers' workflow to find problems sooner. Oh, hold on a sec. There is an error there. 2 days ago, it's GA. It's shipped. It has been shipped 2 days ago. So it's actually free for public repositories. So and again, remember that earlier I mentioned that we want open source maintainers to create fixes for the vulnerabilities and resolve them and announce them. The reason we do it free for public repositories. We want to give those people tools to actually find the vulnerabilities and report them. So if you have any open source project, just feel free to sign up and use it. So that's probably the most interesting feature. Let me show you how it actually works. Any questions so far about it?
Yeah, I've got one.
Sure.
That feature which she said, which now scans the code on a pull request, does that happen independent of like a GitHub action or something like this? Does the user have a ability to turn it on or off just for flexibility's sake? I don't know, I'm just curious. What actually triggers it?
Good question. I will show you in a second then.
Sure.
So here how it gets triggered. Yes, it is GitHub Actions.
Right.
So I have this code.kl YAML file. In this particular case, it's on push only. So it wouldn't trigger on pull request, but once I commit, it will trigger it. Just like with any action, you can specify pull request, you can specify on schedule here. Within pull request and push, you even can specify particular branches. So for example, you can say pull request when the branch is master. So if I try to do pull request between my two test branches, nothing will happen. But as soon as I try to create a pull request, which will merge into master, it will kick in. So yes, in short, it is actions, and just normal actions trigger will apply here. And within here, I can specify languages. I don't have to, but in this particular case, the person specifies the languages, and it will check the code out. For Java, it actually will build it as well, and it will scan it. And the way it will look is like this. So once it's completed, you will get, it will initialize code.kl, get all those queries. Because there is a Java code, which is compilable, we need to build it. It will build it, and then we'll do the code.kl scanning. And the results will come in two places. One place is here. So that's everything that we found. And the interesting parts, let me show you. You can go into each of them. It will tell you where it is. It will give you more information about what's recommended, what the examples are, some references. But the most interesting part is this one. Remember I said we built the database of relationship between objects within your code? Because we have that, we actually can trace back. We able not just to show you the exact line where the problem is. We can trace it back to the very first line where you introduce that problem. So in this screen here, you will only see the last line, this one. But you can go back and see the very first line when you introduce that problem. And it's only 6 steps here. I've seen cases where there are something like 15 to 20 steps. Let's see if I can find it. No, only 3. But yeah, I had cases when there are like 15 steps. So we can go back 15 steps to show you exactly when you started introducing that problem. So this is a view of all problems that we detected. On pull request, it's somewhat very similar. I have this pull request. I can see that the scan kicked in and it failed. I can go into details. It will give me a bit of information where it is. I can see more details from here, and it will take me exactly to the same screen in that longer list. How does that sound?
Is this available on-prem as well, or is it cloud only at this point?
At the moment, it's cloud only. We are working for on-prem. Actually, the latest on-prem GitHub 2.22, which was released, I think last week or a week before, just very recently, it has some beta features there.
Mm-hmm.
But we are working on that, but it's definitely not in GA for on-prem.
Okay, thanks.
One of the reasons is we need to work out the actions as well. So actions are not on-prem yet either. And because we kick it off with actions, we need to sort that one out as well. So yeah, that's GitHub Advanced Security. Now, the next thing I wanted to introduce is the way we deploy GitHub. So there is, as you know, github.com, which is our cloud platform. There is also GitHub Enterprise Server. Just like with any cloud versus on-prem, exactly the same problems. GitHub.com, you don't have to worry about maintenance. With Enterprise Server, you can have complete control over your privacy and code and security and everything else. It's your responsibility. So exactly the same story. But what we were getting is we have customers who really want to go cloud, but because of one reason or another, they can't. And usually it's about either data residency or regulations or some other reasons. So for those customers, they got stuck with server, but they don't really want to maintain that. So that's what we have that's what we have planned. We call it enterprise private instances. It's the best of both worlds. It's cloud maintained by us. So for you, it will be UI. You will be accessing UI. You don't have to worry about maintenance. But because it's a dedicated instance for you in the location which is acceptable for you, all those problems with data residency suddenly disappear. So that's something that is planned. I think it's planned for first quarter next year. But yeah, any questions about those?
It's terrible trying to ask questions to a virtual audience, isn't it? No feedback.
Especially when they're all on mute.
Especially if we don't show the video. Talking to avatar. No, that's okay. I got used to it. So yeah, that's what's coming next. So those are the features that I wanted to talk to you about. And again, it's all about not just code repository. It's really about being a platform for developers from the very beginning until the very end, and ongoing as well.
So can I ask a really basic question?
Sure.
I'm a bit confused about how Azure DevOps and GitHub fit together.
Okay. So Microsoft long-term plan, a strategy is GitHub will be the place as a code repository for all developers, all customers. As of today, you really have a choice. You can stay with Azure DevOps and even have your pipelines there. You can move your code to GitHub and still use Azure DevOps pipelines, or you can slowly start migrating. So these days, we actually contacting a lot of Microsoft customers and explaining to them the features of GitHub, the differences, because at some point they will have to move, and we don't want them to get surprised. If they're ready to move now, we assist them and help with that, but majority of them either move partially or planning to do so in future.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some questions as well. At the start, you were talking about discussions and how they can be part on your GitHub repositories. I've had a look on both my private and public GitHub repos, and I can't see where to enable that. I'm just wondering, is it a pro feature, or is it maybe somewhere I'm not quite expecting? Just curious, because I wouldn't mind turning it on for some of my repos.
Okay, let's see.
At this stage, it's only been enabled for certain high-profile public GitHub repositories, as far as I know.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I thought it's generally available.
Nope. Heck, they won't even turn it on for me, buddy. It's like, come on.
Come on, mate, you'll be last.
Yeah, I will be.
I guess it's not for everybody. I guess I'm special. Okay.
So maybe coming soon.
Yes.
And the one other question I've got is to follow on from the one about Azure DevOps and GitHub. As you said, Microsoft's transitioning from one to the other. Do you have an idea of how long the window is to transition?
I think it will be a few years. It's not months, it's more like years.
We're committed to give customers 5 years notice of any intention to deprecate it, and we haven't even started that conversation yet. So it's a minimum of 5 years from when we decide to tell customers that that's our plan.
Okay, all right, cool. Oh, good.
Hey, Andre or Anthony, the code spaces things, do you know when that's going to be or likely to be generally available?
Let me see. We actually have a public roadmap. Do you know about that?
I should, but I don't.
Okay, let me tell you something about that. This is our public roadmap. Until I think it's in September or August when we started posting things on public roadmap.
Okay.
And it was all internal only. Let's see if I have it here. Code spaces, general availability. Actually, this quarter.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Is this going to replace the Visual Studio similar thing? Do you know?
It might. Well, I think Microsoft has, is it Visual Studio Spaces or something?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
It will replace that.
Yes, it does. It replaces it.
Okay, excellent. Next question. So I'm working in an organization where it's controlled because it's government, et cetera, et cetera. I assume that sort of thing is really on the open internet and it's not going to be internal available?
I think there are talks. When you say internal, are you talking about on GitHub server, on-prem server?
So you know where I'm coming from, right? So the organization I work for is terrible in this respect. We can't even use code share, or, the live share business, because that requires us to connect to an MSA account, and there's absolutely no way that's ever going to happen inside such organizations. And certainly with us working remote, it's actually been a huge barrier to, working collaboratively from a code perspective. I'm just wondering whether that sort of thing's been thought of and whether that sort of thing's going to become more accessible towards those sorts of organizations, or are those organizations just a minority? Hard question, I know, sorry.
I think I've heard some discussions about code spaces for server. I can't recall exactly what was said. So I think there were discussions, but I'm just thinking it might take a while to implement.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. So it's cloud first, in other words. So yeah.
Cloud first, yes.
Try and move your organizations into the cloud and get them comfortable with that. And that's your best. Okay, cool. No worries, thank you.
Yeah, yes. that would be, if you want to start using code spaces, that would be the fastest way to do that. Yeah.
Okay, Anthony's just asked me to give him control. Now, I do this against my best judgment.
Yeah, run for cover.
So I think you're going to need to give me back access, give me back control, I think, Andre.
I think you have it.
Do I? It won't let me. Yeah. It won't let me. Maybe I just don't know how to use Zoom. Quite possible.
Is that a built-in Anthony filter?
Damn, who was that?
I've got a share screen. I can't take it back, I don't think. What's that do? Yeah, no, it won't let me. I think you have to do it, Andre. I think if you right-click me in the participants and say make host.
Oh, hold on a sec. I see it.
Well, it'll be quicker just to pass it straight to me, wouldn't it, Richard?
All that, yes, but do I trust you, Anthony? That's the question.
Maybe just for future reference, if you're the host of the meeting and you want someone else to screen share, you can just make them a co-host.
Hey, it didn't give me that option, eh? That's because I would have chosen. No, otherwise I would have done that.
Okay.
Try now.
Oh, well.
So, Andre, do you want to do your code spaces demo as a voice controlled demonstration? How about that?
Oh, great.
Just tell me what you want me to do.
Give me just a second. Let me see if my thing is public, my repository. And I think it is. So go to github.com/UAInc. Actually, let me post it in chat. We have this chat feature, right?
We have technology, yeah.
I may need to add you. Yeah, can you open it in code spaces? No, drop that next to use this template. Next to it, there is code.
Sorry, let me hide that. Yep.
Open with code spaces. That's why.
So just in terms of letting people see it, if we go back to this calculator, it's a simple calculator. We won't be able to do anything exciting with it, but where normally if you were looking at a repo and you wanted to do some work with it, you'd effectively have to go and clone that to your local machine. You'd need to have an environment on your local machine. You'd need to have the editor. You'd need to have the libraries installed. So here we are sitting in the browser. I can simply go up to code and say, I want to open with code spaces. I've got an existing code space I set up just a few minutes ago at the start of the talk, and I can select that code space. I can easily create a new code space. And what this is going to look like is it's effectively VS Code running in a browser. Behind the scenes, it's all virtualization. So you can pre-install libraries and that will stay there. You can cache information. If you're halfway through an edit, that's going to remain. So there's not a lot of, Andre's not familiar with the code or anything he's seeing here, but what would you like to call out in terms of what your highlights are with code spaces apart from what we can see already?
No, just that's the fact that you get all your environment already set up. You can use this interface just like you use your Visual Studio Code. So all your GitHub Git extensions are there already. So if you make change, you can easily commit it straight from here.
You said before you can have multiple code spaces for a single repository.
Yes. So what would happen is if Anthony opens another tab and opens the same repository.
Right. So when you do a commit, I'm assuming it must have like a different branch name or something. How to avoid clashes between different code spaces?
It's completely two separate environments. So think of it as you have two different laptops with Visual Studio Code.
Okay. So you still would have to make git checkout -b and a branch name or something like that.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
Gotcha.
when you open with code spaces, if you click there, there is an already existing one, but you can create a new one underneath. And it will spin off the whole new VM in Azure with completely separated environment. So obviously the changes you make here will be different to the changes in another code space.
Yeah, no, not fair enough.
Okay.
Okay, well, good.
So you might have, for example, a code space with, I don't know, if you deploy to two different environments, one code space may have settings for one environment, another code space settings for another environment. It's still the same code, but maybe some different settings.
Of course, with LiveShare built in, it means that we can then collaborate on a single instance of the VM, which makes that whole experience of pair programming so much easier. You don't have to worry about making sure you've got the same libraries, the same versions, the same tools, and all that sort of stuff.
What's more is the other person doesn't have to be in code spaces to LiveShare collaborate. They can join from Visual Studio Code from actual application.
That looks extremely useful. Can't wait for that to become available.
Later this quarter. If you give me, I think the code spaces, oh no, it disappeared again for me. Is it still working for you? Like if you go back to GitHub, do you still have code spaces on top, Anthony? Oh, I guess it doesn't like me. Okay, but yeah, that's the idea. Put the whole development environment into the cloud.
That's really, really awesome. So we're almost up for time. Do you have anything else, Andre?
No, that's it. That's it.
Okay, awesome.
I've just got one last question, if I may, on
Go.
licensing. So currently, with the Visual Studio subscription, Azure DevOps is included. With Microsoft pushing people towards GitHub, I'm just looking at the pricing plans at the moment. To get single sign-on, you've got to get Enterprise, which is $21 per user per month, which is obviously a bit of a step up from free. Is there going to be any movement on that in terms of bundling GitHub with a Visual Studio subscription or anything like that? Do you or Anthony have any insight into what might happen in that space?
Yes, as a shareholder, pay up.
Not self-serving at all, are you?
Oh, sorry, my mic was open.
And it's still being recorded.
It's all right. Anyone that knows me won't be surprised.
No.
Andre, have you got some good news to share with Nick?
I don't know. How does free sound?
Free's
Say
always
what?
good.
So I think I'm not sure whether it's announced this week, but we will include GitHub Enterprise with Visual Studio subscription.
Awesome.
It's technically, I think
awesome.
it's a step up, but I think
great
it's cents per month per developer or something or other. I mean, it's so close to free, it isn't funny. It's less than a coffee.
Sounds good.
Yeah. It's something like 12 cents.
Still less than a coffee.
Awesome. Thank you.
As of yesterday.
That's excellent news. So if we went to our Visual Studio subscription thing, we should see that show up yet, or is that going to take a while?
No, it's not automatic. You need to ping your Microsoft rep.
Ah, okay, gotcha.
But Nick, if you're quick, you can still pay the $21. And I'd appreciate it.
Anthony's coffee habits are extremely expensive.
Yeah. What do you drink for coffee?
No, it's per month. It's per month. So you need coffee daily, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's really, really good news. Any other questions or any further comments from either Andre or Anthony? I'll take silence as a no. Thank you very much for the few of us who joined. That was really, really good.
Really interesting. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it was really, really interesting. While this has been going on, I've actually been setting up some of that stuff on my one repo as well. So thank you very much, Andre. That's really, really good. So I guess we'll call that a meeting, as it is 3 minutes to 12. Thanks a lot for coming along, folks.
No.
And
Thanks,
we'll...
everyone. Yep. Thanks, Andre.
Thanks, Andre.
Thanks.
And
Bye.
that's right.
Adam.
And we'll organise something for next month. So stay tuned, folks. So thanks for coming. And at that point, I shall stop and talk to you later.
Bye.
Thank you. It's always nice
Bye.
to
Bye.
See ya.